The Spear, episode 54.
Welcome to The Spear, the spearfishing podcast where Spiro shares stories, insights, and tips to help you on your spearfishing journey. Welcome to the tribe, and now, your host, Roman Castro from SpearoBlog.com.
Welcome back, SpearoNation. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you are getting value out of this show and want to become a listener supporter, check out SpearoNation.com/help or go listen to episode 35 for more info on how it works. All right, so the show notes for this episode are going to be over at SpearoBlog.com/TS054. All right. That's Tango Sierra 054. So our guest today is a woman who is an awesome Spiro. She's been spearfishing since she was a little girl. She's a competitor with a great attitude about life, the sport, and safety. Welcome back, SpearoNation. I'm excited to bring you our featured guest today, Angie Anderson. Angie, welcome to the Spear.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So, Angie actually listens to the show, so I'm kind of stoked. Nice. And she is an awesome Spiro from Florida, but I'll let her tell you a little bit about herself first, so go ahead.
Yeah, I was born and raised here in the Tampa Bay area, so a lot of the spearfishing I do is in the Gulf of Mexico.
Let's jump into the new Spiro segment, and this is where you basically share how you got into the sport. So how did you discover spearfishing?
I was born here, so I spent a lot of time on the boat fishing with my parents, and the town I'm from is it's called Chazahuisca.
Oh, cool.
And it's like a really small kind of old Florida backwoods town, and the area is known for scalloping. Oh. So I grew up doing a lot of scalloping and fishing inshore, and eventually that translated to picking up a pole spear and just playing with my brother and my parents in some shallow rocks and learning to spearfish that way.
That's awesome. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Do you remember what your first I guess, fishing implement was? Was it a pole spear?
Oh,
maybe,
God, this is terrifying. I had one of those super thick fiberglass JBL pole spears.
Oh, nice.
The like the 3-prong tip on it.
Yeah. And
killed a lot of small mangrove snappers and sheephead for a while when I was like 8 or 9.
Nice. So you were 8 or 9 when you started?
Yeah, I think I shot my first fish when I was probably like 7.
Wow.
And whatever would stay close enough for me to cock the band, the foot that I could make it.
Nice. That's perfect.
And started getting a little more serious. I think I got a little like 28-inch JBL aluminum pipe gun.
Nice.
When I was 10, and that really started it for me.
That's awesome. So, do you remember having any problems like freediving at that age?
At that age, in the area we're in, it's super shallow, so I was in 8 or 10 feet.
Cool.
And that was great. So no problems there, fortunately. When I was 13, I got Scuba certified, and I started to spearfish on Scuba, and it took a while to get comfortable at depth, but it wasn't too bad.
Nice. So you really got into it when you got into Scuba, right?
Absolutely. My cousin is a really active commercial spear fisherman.
Cool.
So he kind of took me under his wing, which was an interesting start to spearfishing because it's definitely a lot different than what the general community is used to.
Right.
It doesn't particularly follow safety guidelines. And looking back, it's kind of a miracle that I survived.
That's crazy. That's awesome. But you got your feet wet, literally, right? I'm sorry.
Yeah, literally wet.
And you started to get fish, which is cool. How long did it take you before you started exploring like freediving as opposed to scuba?
We would go back and forth from the shallow stuff I was in, and I drive 2 hours south to St. Pete, which is where I live now. And here, it wasn't easy to spearfish unless you were in at least 40 feet of water. And I remember my first freedive trip, I was with some really experienced dudes, and I'm like, I'm badass. I can totally do this. And I wasn't at all. So I really started to kind of look into learning how to freedive and went through some really unsavory tactics to do that. So when I took Ted Hardy's course with immersion, I was like, oh my gosh, it totally changed the game for me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
How far? I mean, you already by the time you took Ted's course, you're pretty well into it, right?
Pretty well into spearfishing. Freediving, I could shoot a fish in 40 feet and make it back up 45 feet. I think I'd hit 70 or so in a cave freediving. So I thought I was really legit. And after Ted's course, I realized just how unsafe I was when I was doing that. So again, happy I made it through that alive.
Right? That's crazy. That's crazy. So let's go back, talk a little bit more about the new stuff. So, or the beginner days. Do you remember what your first game fish was?
Oh gosh, first game fish?
Or your first memorable fish?
Oh, okay. So my first fish is actually incredibly embarrassing, but we're doing a podcast. I'm on video.
Woohoo!
So I'm gonna bear it all. First fish on that horrible yellow JBL pole spear. I had gone on my own with my family, of course, but I kind of went to a different side of the reef and was like ready to just kill anything that came in sight. And I lined up on a spade fish and shot it. And proudly proclaimed to my brother that I had shot a sheep's head because it had stripes, and I was like totally the same, right? Nice. So my fish identification skills weren't exactly on par.
That's funny.
At 7. But awesome. I think my most memorable first kill, I had shot a pretty big grouper when I was 10. I think it was a solid 14 or 15 pound fish. Nice. And I yanked it out from under the rock and was like, hey, Dad, check this out. And it was a pretty cool moment.
Was your family, was your dad into spearfishing too?
Yeah, they're definitely more hook and line fishermen. We grew up doing the kingfish tournaments and a lot of grouper fishing and stuff around here. So I think spearfishing was definitely more of an accompanying sport that we did.
Got it.
And for me, I've kind of switched the roles where I prefer to spearfish and fish occasionally.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Okay. So, it sounds like you didn't have any real challenges when you're starting out. Like, you started so young and then you got into scuba.
I totally had challenges. Okay. Absolutely.
Let's talk about some of those challenges.
One of the hardest things for me was the transition with scuba spearfishing and freedive spearfishing. When I was scuba diving, I learned to free shaft, so I didn't have a shooting line.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It was, again, a really interesting way to get started with it. But the type of shooting you do, the way you line up on a fish, is significantly different than when you shoot with a line or with a reel. Yep. So on scuba, I was so used to taking horizontal shots directly at a fish. You'd be on the bottom and you'd just kind of be looking at them, broadside, line up.
Yeah.
Exactly, you get that broadside. So when I started freediving and you're kind of dropping on top of fish, learning to make those shots vertically was definitely a change for me.
Smaller target, yeah.
Absolutely, smaller target and doing it on a limited breath. I mean, when we would free shaft, you could let the shaft go, let the fish kind of go where it wants to, and you're going to catch up with it eventually.
Right.
Line shafting, especially in the questionable visibility we have here in the Gulf, you really have to get control of that fish pretty quick, or else it's going to take a while to get out of whatever hole it climbs into.
Right. Oh, that's cool. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. So, I mean, with the popularity of freediving and spearfishing, I see a lot of people switching over from scuba to freediving. Like, what? I mean, this is a kind of random one. I'm just going to ask it because you obviously have experience. What would be some tips you'd give to somebody that's going from scuba to freediving?
I always find it interesting. Scuba is obviously, illegal in a lot of places, but it can be frowned upon. There's this, like, unwritten war between scuba and freedivers. And the one thing I would say to anybody who's a scuba diver that's looking to transition into freediving is not to do it without a proper education. I think, especially as a scuba diver, you're used to throwing all this weight on, hopping in, getting to the bottom. And Ted Hardy, who I took my course from, is an excellent example of that. He was a scuba diver, scuba diving instructor. And I did the same thing as him. Like, I'm going to free dive, throw a bunch of weight on, and, like, go see how long I can hold on to the bottom. And that's how you kill yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think the biggest piece of advice I would give somebody is to absolutely look into an education. If you can't afford a course, make sure you're diving with people that have. And it's really easy to figure out whether you're overweighted. I mean, you can watch a YouTube video on how to check your weighting for proper spearfishing. Right. So that, God forbid, something does happen and you pass out, you don't sink to the bottom.
Yep, makes sense. Perfect. Yeah, it's especially for those guys that are like in scuba or guys and gals that are in scuba and they have attained a level of certification within scuba that is like, wow, they're like, I don't even know what you call it. Like what's it called when they go dive below the recreational level?
I don't. It's scary.
It's really easy. It's really easy to think to yourself, hey, I'm a wreck diver. I'm certified to dive in caves, right? And it's like, no, dude, it's a completely different sport. So
you absolutely get cocky. I mean, as a scuba diver, especially like I said, learning with some commercial guys who don't know the definition of buddy diving, it's all very kind of, you're there for yourself and don't be on my part of the ledge, those types of things. So to switch to free diving and really keep the safety aspect in mind, being a cocky scuba diver, which it happens to all of us, is how you get yourself in trouble.
Nice. Tell us the most memorable experience from your beginner days.
Oh my goodness.
And tell us like the story of it. So feel free to take as long as you want.
Take a minute. For my beginner days, other than my fish identification skills being questionable at best.
Maybe it's like your best memory of it.
Okay, so this one, Dad, if you're watching this, I'm sorry that I'm putting you on blast right now. But
I love when a story starts like that, by the way.
Right? So family tradition, we go down to the Keys. We stand marathon for opening week of lobster season every year.
Awesome.
It's some of the greatest memories of my childhood, and even now as an adult or semi-adult, that I really enjoy doing. And I was maybe 10 or 11. We were on a trip, and when we're lobstering, there's occasionally a hole that's going to house a red grouper, or you find a mutton or something like that. And I distinctly remember that we were pulling lobsters out of this hole, and a decent-sized hogfish cruised in. And, of course, we're all kind of like fighting over who's going to shoot this fish. And the patriarch of our family, my dad's like, I'm going to shoot this fish and, bring home the bacon here. And he grabbed whatever woody gun we had in the boat, loaded it, took a shot on this fish, missed. And hogfish aren't exactly known for being smart or evasive species by any means whatsoever. So naturally this fish kind of like stuck around the same small rock pile. So he reloaded, went to go shoot again, missed again. And at this point, like, I'm 10. I'm like, Dad, you're embarrassing me. Get it together, dude. How am I supposed to learn from you? And finally took like a third shot, hit him in the belly, ripped off, and went and slid underneath this rock. So I remember I took the spear gun from him at 10, and I was like, let me just show you how it's done. And went right up underneath the rock and popped the fish and yanked him out. I just like looked at my dad and I was like, yeah, the reins have been passed now, dude. I'm sorry. I guess I'm the provider for our family now.
That's funny. Like, go with some scallops pops. That's good.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
There's
awesome.
Some dead lobsters in the live well if you want to go try to get one of those.
Oh, that's awesome. That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. Sorry, Dad. Love ya.
All right. So, are you a member of, or have you ever been a member of any clubs?
Well, I guess not. We have some great local clubs in Tampa Bay. The St. Pete Underwater Club's super, super popular. Cool. They put on what's known as the world's largest spearfishing tournament, the St. Pete Open.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that. I've seen pictures actually. It's crazy, the award ceremony or the weigh-ins.
Oh my gosh, the weigh-ins. Even before I competed in it, I would go as a spectator to the weigh-in. I mean, it's not every day you get to see 100-pound carbos and 10-pound lobsters and stuff coming in. And it's inspiring.
So tell me the tournament and who it's put on by again.
I'm sorry?
Tell me the tournament and who it's put on by again.
It's the St. Pete Open, and it's put on by the St. Pete Underwater Club.
Oh, awesome. Perfect.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
cool.
And it's in August every year.
Oh, nice. Perfect.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And I guess I should put a plug in for the Tampa Bay Spearfishing Club's tournament. And they do 2 tournaments here that I compete in as well, the Tampa Bay Spearfishing Challenge.
Oh, cool. What's the format of that?
There is, but actually almost all the tournaments we have here in our area have both aggregate categories and big fish categories.
Oh, cool.
So I'm not somebody who's going to strap on a tank and go bounce to 260 feet and try to pull out a 130-pound fish.
I know,
It's
that's
just
crazy.
no way. So for the longest time, I didn't really compete, thinking like I can't really do anything against these people bringing in 100-pound fish.
Yeah.
And I started to look more into the aggregate tournaments. I'm like, I might not be able to shoot the biggest fish, but I can darn well shoot a lot of fish.
Yeah.
So that's when I started to compete, and I've had a really fun time doing that.
That's cool. So can you tell us about the first time you were in a competition? Like what? Let's start over. Sorry. So let me reset this one. I like this thread. So you realize that there's competitions, and what made you decide to do your first competition?
I think the first tournament I did in the Tampa Bay area was actually the Tampa Bay Spearfishing Challenge, which is out of Sarasota. Or, I'm sorry, the Suncoast Spearfishing Challenge, which is out of Sarasota. It's put on by a great guy, Chris Barton, and was an aggregate tournament. And this was 3 years ago was the first time I competed in it.
Oh, cool.
And it's actually an open tournament, so it's kind of all over the state of Florida, which was cool. I was competing against people from the east coast of Florida down to the Keys,
nice.
And all came together for the weigh-in the next day.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Very cool.
Nice. What was it like? What drove you to actually to actually compete?
I think I'd gotten more friends, and of course, social media is great for that. You know, I mean, there's a level of competitiveness and smack talk prior to events. Especially, you know, it's funny, the women in the sport for the women's divisions. There's not a whole lot of us, so we all know each other pretty well. And what's great about having that going for me, being a woman, is that I can compete in the overall and as a woman, which is awesome because it's.
Oh, I get it. I see.
Yeah. Double
cool.
the categories and oftentimes can be double the prize. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Nice. Any world records? Anything you?
I have shot and broken the women's gag world record more times than I can probably admit.
Awesome.
Right now, I do have a pending world record for the gag grouper that was shot during a tournament.
Oh, cool. So, okay, I didn't know. I was just asking, so that's perfect. So let me write that down. We're going to talk about that a little bit in the seasoned Spearo segment, or the salty Spearo segment. So
yeah,
I'll try to remember. Perfect. All right. So now we're going to jump into the Trident segment. And it's basically where you share 3 tips for somebody that's new to the sport. And the Trident segment is being brought to us by the Monterey Bay Trident Spearfishing Club. They operate between Northern and Central California, and you can learn more about them by going to MontereyBayTritons.com. Nailed it. That's great. All right, so if you were starting out today, what tips would you tell yourself to get?
Oh, what? 3 tips, right?
Yep.
Okay. So the first, I guess, is a little bit of a double-edged sword. So that is this monster that we have with social media. It's great. It's a great way to connect with other people. It's a great way to learn a lot of new things. I think that there's so much information. There's more and more spearfishing shops that are putting out just YouTube videos. I learned how to tie my own spear gun bands on YouTube.
Yeah.
So there's really cool stuff that you can do and learn. However, it also, I think, can put this pressure on people. Ted Hardy calls it like out-cooling other people. So
out-cooling, yeah, that makes sense.
Try to out-cool the next guy. Yeah. So I think that you can use it to your advantage in learning things and meeting people, but don't let it put pressure on you to get somewhere that might not be a good position, beyond your experience level, beyond your comfort level. It's not about having the most Instagram likes. It shouldn't be about having the most Instagram likes.
Nice. I like this. This is a good one. This is a really good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I like this one.
So, second piece of advice.
Like me on Facebook, guys. I was kidding. I was like, but still, like my Instagram tweets, guys. I was kidding.
You should totally follow.
I'm kidding.
I'm Anderson Angie. Just small plug for myself there.
Yes. It's not about the likes, but if you're gonna go like people anyway, go like Angie Anderson. It's Angie Anderson, right? Angie Anderson at Angie Anderson.
I don't even know my own name. Anderson Angie.
At Anderson Angie. Come on, guys, get it together. All right,
get it together. You're probably already following me now.
Yeah, I am. Oh, nice. I'm like, yeah, I am. That's funny.
Okay, so another piece of advice, like I kind of mentioned it before, but get an education. You can spend all the money you want on the best fins and the best gear and the best, you can be the coolest person in the world. But it all sucks, one, if you're dead, it doesn't really matter. Two, at least for experienced divers, and I know for myself, the people that I like to bring on my boat, the people that I like to dive with, I want to bring people that I know have my back, and I'm going to have theirs. I want to dive with people that if something happens to me out there, whether it's a fish kicking my butt or it's samba or a blackout, then I'm going to have somebody right on top of me when I hit the surface. And that makes you a valuable dive partner. It's going to open up a lot of windows for opportunity. If somebody reaches out to me and says, hey, let's go diving, I'm a certified freediver.
Right.
You're not going to have to, pull me down up from the bottom. You don't have to call my mom and dad and be like, hey guys, sorry.
Yeah.
Then there's a lot of value there. So get an education, spend the money on that. Don't spend the money on your fins. It's way, way, way more valuable.
Yes, it costs about the same, right?
Yeah. Well, it depends on the fins, but it's I can't say enough good things about what the course did for me when I took Ted's course. It doesn't have to be PFI, it doesn't have to be TED. FIA is a great organization, but at least learning those basics and being safe on the water makes all the difference in the world.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I like it. That's good. So I have this philosophy of like be the dive buddy you want to have, right?
Yes,
that's
thank
right.
You.
So that's the way it should go, right?
Absolutely, it makes a big difference. There's a pretty small group of people that I dive with, and it's not because I am picky.
Because you're too Instagram cool. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that might have something to do with it, but
nice.
You have to have at least 3,000 followers.
Oh god, that's awesome. That's funny.
Totally
that's so funny. I know. No, but that makes sense. That makes sense. Like, you end up like getting a tighter group of people because those are the guys that are certified and you trust, and they've proven to you that they're worthy of your trust.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
And not only that, like I care about my life a lot. I care about making sure that I make it home, but I also want to go out there and have fun and not worry about what this guy's doing that I'm going to have to call his mom and tell him that, he passed out today and he's in the hospital because he's got water in his lungs and that kind of stuff. We're all out there to have fun. That's what it's about, So that's like exactly what you said. Be the dive buddy that you want your buddies to be.
Nice. All right, cool. Perfect. All right, and then the third tip.
Find a mentor that believes in a lot of those philosophies that we've talked about, and listen to them. You've had some legends on your show from G.R. Tarr to Cam Kirkconnell and Jeremy Gamble, and a lot of really experienced people that have a lot to say and a good reputation, and aren't worried about outcooling the next guy. Yeah. And I think it's important to have a good mentor. So find that person. And the great thing about our community as a whole, with very few exceptions, I think, is that we want each other to succeed, and we want each other to, I'm more excited when a buddy I have shoots a big fish than when I even shoot one of my own. So if you can support each other, especially for women in this sport, there aren't a lot of us. So anytime there's a girl that wants to learn, I'm more than happy to kind of take them under my wing or, offer advice.
Yeah,
And
that's cool.
It's important to build each other up. So you want to find somebody that can help you with that, and then continue to return the favor as you grow in the sport.
Nice. Perfect. I like that. Those are awesome tips. Those are good, yeah. So, all right. So now we're going to jump into the Salty Spearo segment. The Salty Spearo segment is brought to us by Spearing Magazine. The next issue of Spearing Magazine is about to start mailing out, so get your subscription in today to make sure you're on the mailing list. You can subscribe to America's top spearfishing magazine or submit an article by going to spearingmagazine.com.
Well done.
Awesome.
Well done.
All right, so the Salty Spearo segment, this is where we go into kind of like the highlights of your spearfishing journey so far. So, right? Sounds cool. Sounds complicated.
Yeah. There's stories.
Yeah. Let's get into the world record one right now, real quick. So get us going.
Start big.
Start big, right? So tell us about how you shot this fish, or like how this came about.
Okay. So I've been shooting gag grouper for a really long time. And I never really knew much about the world record process. I didn't really pay much attention to it, I guess. And I remember looking and seeing that there's no gag grouper world record. So I was like, okay, so what? I just shoot a fish that's 10 pounds and I get the world record? That's how it works? Cool.
Nice.
And then Stacey Johnson shot a 13-pound fish out with Jeremy and I over here on the West Coast, and just submitted it. It was awesome. I was so stoked for her. Like I said before, I'm like happier for other people when they succeed than I am when I do myself.
That's awesome.
So Jeremy and I were talking, and this season we're like, all right, well, let's do something worthwhile and break that. So we went out on grouper opener, and it was myself, Jeremy, my good dive buddy Daniel Ash, and I'm trying to think, Justin Baker was with us. I think Stacy was even with us.
Nice.
And we were hunting some shallow grouper numbers, and I'd found a rock, and up there it's really, really cool hunting. It's almost Bahamas-ish with just kind of these really multi-dimensional rock piles with caves and fish that you wouldn't think would be hiding in such a small area that can really surprise you. It's really unique and really neat. We're so lucky to have it in our backyard here. But I had kind of gone, and I was looking under this rock and put my flashlight in it, and was like, there's a big grouper in here. So I backed up and took a shot. And I'd like to say that I think about how I'm going to get a fish out of a rock before I shoot, but that's a lie. I kind of shoot first and like ask questions later.
Nice.
So I mean, he's got in there one way. He's going to get out of there again. So I that's not something I would recommend in the Trident section of this. I would say to think your shots through before taking them. But I shot this fish, and I was trying really hard to just get this fish out, and Justin was there with me, and I kind of was like, dude, I think this is a pretty big fish. The world record, you can't touch it. Nobody else can shoot it. Dan was with me too. So I'm working this fish out. Finally, I have his head out of one side of the hole, and his gill plates are slammed open, which is pretty good indication that he doesn't want to go anywhere. The shaft is sticking out of the other side of the hole, so it wasn't going to be going through. It was just kind of a mess.
Right.
So I came back up from this dive. We were in like 15 feet of water. And I was getting ready to do another dive and just try to horse him out one way or another. And he just comes straight out of the hole. He knew he had a break to make it. And I just see him swimming away. And I look at Dan, who's next to me with his gun, and I'm like screaming, shoot him, shoot him. I'm like, I don't care about the world record anymore. Just land the fish. So he put a shaft in him, and we got into the boat. He's like, I'm sorry, I ruined your record. I'm like, dude, it's fine. Like, we got the fish in the boat,
Awesome.
And it's like a 17-pound fish. It would have broken the record by 4 pounds.
Oh, nice.
And it was just, it's funny how that worked out. So we're like, not a big deal. And then I competed in a tournament, and maybe a month later or two, and my first drop of the day first fish I shot on an artificial that we weren't even there to shoot gags at. I mean, we stopped there to try to find some big mangroves. And I had Jan with me again. He did a drop. There was nothing around. I did a breathe up, dropped. And just sitting right outside of a piece of this artificial was this big gag. And I was kind of like, what are you doing here, buddy?
Are you lost? Hey, little buddy, come here.
So I shot him, and I completely stoned, rolled over,
Nice.
And brought him to the surface. And I was like, well, that will do it. So
That's awesome.
yeah, that was cool.
So cool.
And since then, I've shot a couple of other bigger gags, but I'm sure that I'll be able to break that as time goes on.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So you have a picture of that one, right?
I do.
Okay, that's the one I want to use for the cover. Is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Cool. That's so awesome. Nice.
I'm on a mission though now to, and hopefully in the next few weeks I'll be able to work on the pole spear amberjack record.
Oh,
so
nice.
We've been working hard on scouting some good amberjack numbers. I shot a huge one on spear gun two days ago.
Nice.
So I need to get back out there with a pole spear and see if I can do some primitive on it.
What's your pole spear setup?
So I actually have been really fortunate. Jeremy received the new Billfish Republic roller pole spear.
Oh, nice.
So we've been working.
He told me about it, but
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. So how do you like it?
It's a monster. I mean, it is. If there's ever been a pole spear that's kind of designed for shooting big fish like that just are made to wreck your gear, that's it. It's.
Sorry, it's hard to interrupt you for a second. Is that already in the magazine? Is that coming out? Is that going to be in this magazine?
So the review for that one will be in the second magazine. So
got it. Cool.
That one.
Can we even talk about it?
Yeah, we can talk about it a little bit.
All right, cool. I mean, that's so cool. I mean, this is like so. Just for those of you guys that didn't catch that, it's a roller pole spear, right?
Yes.
That's cool. I don't even know. I can't even imagine what it looks like. So can you describe it a little bit?
Yeah, it's freaking big. It's I would say that it's like, if as far as purpose goes, I know that it's been being used by Chris Tavera down in the Bahamas a lot, and of course, like, this kid just puts up these monster blacks on a regular basis. So it's definitely made for pulling those big fish out of holes and not bending or breaking under pressure. So the roll, or the actual band for it, kind of goes down, oh gosh, I don't know, maybe a foot or two on one side of it, and then up through the top of the pole spear. So you're getting an extra stretch there. So there's an awesome band, and the band's really, really neat. It has a larger
Diameter
strap around it, so that you can just kind of rest it much more easily than a thin rubber band.
Makes sense.
And bring it down. You get the extra stretch, a little bit more stability, and it definitely penetrates.
Does it shoot fast?
It does shoot fast. I wouldn't say it's the most fastest, like, to move in the water, just because it is larger and a little burlier. So I wouldn't say it's like the best one to swing around and shoot a bunch of small fish with. Right. But if you want to kill big, that's the pole spear. And
awesome.
I would just submit that for their, like, official slogan.
That's hilarious. Perfect. Cool. I like it. Okay. Let's see. One of your scariest stories.
Oh gosh, I was spearfishing with a good friend of mine, Matt, and we were on a natural ledge in about 80 feet of water. It was gag season. It was a beautiful day. We had pretty good visibility, which is rare for the Gulf Coast. We had maybe 20 feet horizontally. Nice. And I had already shot 2 gags and a couple of hogfish and had a really nice stringer, and was really, really excited, just having an awesome dive, and shot another big gag. And I was line shafting, which I rarely did on Scuba. But I had kind of made a crappy shot on this fish. It was not in any way subdued. So I had kind of put it between my legs to grip it, if you will, and try to dispatch it with my dive knife.
Right.
So I'm kind of like straddling this gag, which was probably a 15 or 16 pound fish. And all of a sudden I just got knocked hard from behind, just right in the side, by a big bull shark. And of course, I didn't see him coming. I was making all this commotion. I had this fish between my legs. I was like, it's just a mess. And I see blood everywhere.
Oh, no.
And I knew, I'm like, this is my blood. Like, this shark just bit me. I mean, my adrenaline was pumping. And the shark came around and kind of circled back toward me with part of my grouper in its mouth and coming back for the rest of it. And I actually was trying to kick back while holding onto my gun because the shark could have taken my leg, I think, and I would have held on to my spear gun. I'm like,
Oh,
don't take my crap. Come on, dude. But the shark came back just kind of at my chest. And I had my hands on his head, trying to kick and push and knee him away from me. And he just circled back around. He grabbed the fish, grabbed my shaft. And I'm looking for my dive buddy, and I did mention that we weren't always the safest when it came to dive buddies on Scuba. And trying to find Matt, and of course all the commotion, all the blood in the water, the bait fish had surrounded, the jacks moved in.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
It was a tornado of life and activity, which would have been really cool if I wasn't at the center of it. But in the distance, I just see Matt on Scuba looking at me, and he's like, "Do you want to go up now?" And I'm like trying to, like, I've got my gun. I'm like trying to get out of here. And he and I kind of meet back up, and my shaft is on the bottom, just mangled. And there's 3 bull sharks at this point. And I've got the stringer around my elbow and my gun in my hand. And I literally don't even remember making it into the boat. I think my adrenaline was rushing so much. I mean, I was in the boat with all probably 20 pounds of my scuba gear still on. Like, what the hell just happened down there? So that was my scariest shark moment. I recovered. But, I think we have a tendency to get a little comfortable with sharks. So every once in a while, they just kind of remind you that that's their home, and learn a little respect for that.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
And that definitely did that for me. My adrenaline was at an all-time high.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a crazy story.
That was bad.
That's a crazy story. So just to clarify, when he initially bumped you, did he actually bite you too?
No,
It was the gags.
It was the gag
Okay,
grouper,
cool.
yeah.
All right. Wow.
It was big
Still
enough
scary
fish
as hell.
that
Yeah.
the whole tail and stuff was behind me. I just had the head in front of me trying to shoot it. I was so excited too. It was a really nice fish.
Oh man.
I'm like, why couldn't you have done that with like this little like 10-pound gag I shot,
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, let's see. Is that okay?
That was my scariest spearfishing moment.
That's
for
awesome.
Sure.
That's pretty scary.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go with what is the best spearfishing advice someone has given you?
Oh man, I have to think about this one. Again, I don't know if I could even consider it spearfishing advice, but more so freediving advice.
Okay.
So I sound like a broken record, but like, diving with a buddy.
Perfect.
And never, ever, ever breaking that rule. It's so easy. And I distinctly remember when I took Ted's course, him talking about an experience that another diver had when his buddy did a dive and then just went back to the boat to throw a fish in the boat when somebody else did a dive, which we do all the time, and it's like, I'll just dive real quick. My buddy will be right back. He knows where I am. It's not a big deal. I can break the rule this time. And in that circumstance that he told us about, this guy had passed out, blacked out. Unfortunately, his buddy saw him from the boat and was able to kind of hop in and rescue him. But it's so easy to try to come up with like these excuses and become really comfortable with it and whatnot. So never, ever, ever break that rule.
Yeah.
And that's like the biggest piece of advice. And that goes for scuba too. So I'll say that as well.
Perfect.
Don't go off on your own and think that you're, the coolest person ever and won't die, because it can happen to anybody.
Nice. Okay. what is in your dive bag? What gear do you have? Like, what gear do you use?
Yeah,
Dang it.
at least, yeah, I know. What gear don't I use is probably a short list. The most important thing in my dive bag, bottle of conditioner, does double duty, lubes the suit, and keeps the hair in check.
Nice. Like, how do you know someone spearfishes? They have like the best hair. I was kidding.
Yeah. Well, anytime I dive on somebody else's boat, Jeremy in particular, he's like, I always know when you've been with me because like there's strands of your hair everywhere. I'm like, yeah, you got to keep it in check.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So, in my dive bag, I've been using the same pair of like Mako competition freediver fins for 4 years. They've seen some. I remember I dove the Inner Bay Spearfishing Challenge one year, and the current was ripping so bad under the bridge where we were at to shoot Sheep's Head. I was like bear hugging the piling of the bridge just to try to get a breathe up, and my fins like were scraping all over it. And I mean they're more scrapes than they are camo at this point.
Nice.
So I've got those. I have the same hatch mask that I've used for about 2 years. I love it. It's great because as a woman, finding a mask to fit our face shapes is not easy, and it's low volume enough for me to use freediving comfortably. Really cool. Easy for me to clear. Yeah.
So that's good. So since we're on that thread,
yeah.
What suit do you wear? Because I get some women who email me and they're like, "Hey, I don't know what suit to get." I'm like, "I don't know. Yeah. I'm a dude."
If I had an unlimited budget, I'd be like, "Oh, I'm going to go get a custom Oceana or those rec suits that are great."
Nice.
They don't have unlimited budget, so for a while I was wearing just men's suits and didn't realize how limiting that was for me. I think it's one of those things you don't kind of know until you've tried something different. So doing a breathe up, especially freediving, trying to make that room when you've got lady curves
right.
in a restrictive top is really difficult. So I reached out to Nautilus Spearfishing, Andrew, and he was able to get me a great women's cut Jack Bueno suit, which is my first women's suit, and I absolutely loved it. So I used that one for a while. I just got a new Torelli Eve suit in that red color, which is really, really cool.
Yeah,
I'm enjoying that.
Cool.
And
yeah.
it's so comfortable. And having a women's cut suit, especially for a woman who's got curves, makes the biggest difference, especially when it comes to your breathe up and being really comfortable with that. So, and more companies are coming out with them. Omer just came out with a women's suit. I think it's going to be available in the spring here. So there's more out there, which is great because there's more women involved in the sport.
That's awesome. Perfect. Besides the shark encounter that you described earlier.
Yes.
I know there's another real scary experience that you went through, and I was wondering if you want to share that with us.
Yeah. So I guess it wouldn't really be my story unless we talked about it. So I started spearfishing when I was really young, like we talked about, and got super involved with it when I was like a preteen and even like, 15, 16, 17. And when I was 19, I was working full time. I was a banker and I was going to college and kind of like on top of the world. I was making like $45,000 a year at 19. I was like, oh, I'm doing great in my life. And I had a cardiac event that kind of put me out for a long time. So I wasn't feeling well. Called my dad. I was like, hey, Dad, you take me to the hospital. Like, something's not right, which is kind of a big deal for me. I'm not really much of a complainer. And he came to the bank where I was working and found me like dead on the floor, literally. So it was really traumatizing for him and for the staff that I worked with. They brought me to the hospital, ran some tests, transferred me to another hospital, to another one. And I was diagnosed with a condition that kind of falls underneath an umbrella term it's called dysautonomia. Which is basically an electrical issue that I have where my brain and my heart don't really communicate.
Right.
So I spent about a year in and out of hospitals and bed rest and kind of some touch and go times where we weren't sure if I was even going to live.
Wow.
I mean, I remember filling out my living will when I was 20.
Wow.
And talking to my parents about, what my wishes were, et cetera, which was really difficult conversations to have, but it gave me a really interesting outlook on life, a really unique outlook, a really kind of carpe diem way about going about things here. And eventually we found a good combination of medication that would help, and I had a pacemaker defibrillator implanted. I was 20 when we had that put in, and I remember it was funny at that time. I had been in the hospital for weeks on end and was in a really bad place, and just kind of bummed on life in general. Like, what am I doing hospital bound without like a whole lot of hope, I guess.
Right.
So we decided we're going to put this pacemaker in, and I couldn't even walk at the time. I was effectively wheelchair bound. Anytime I stood up, I would pass out because my heart would stop. And my doctor, who I've developed a great relationship, kind of came to me and was like, all right, this is the device we're going to put in. It's a Boston Scientific pacemaker. This is it. And I looked at him and I was like, well, like, how deep can I dive with it? And he was like, let's get you walking first, and then we'll worry about like the whole diving thing. And I was like, well, yeah, but like I kind of have to be able to like dive and stuff still, right? And
wow.
I actually called Boston Scientific and I was like, so I really want to make sure that this thing can go to a certain depth. So my doctor lied to me about how deep it could go. He's like, you can go 100 feet when I say you're allowed to dive again. And I'm like, I'll, so I can go like 100 feet now. And like 6 months later or so, I was doing a lot better. The pacemaker and the drugs kind of got it together. And I remember the day I got my driver's license back. It was just so funny at 21 to be like, I can drive again. But it was huge. It was huge. I remember it. I remember the first fish I shot when I came back from all of that. I cried like a baby. But it was a big moment. So it's funny, when I went to go take my freediving course, obviously there was a lot of paperwork and stuff we had to fill out. And my doctor had to sign off on this medical clearance that I could do this freediving course. And I had faxed it to his office and didn't get a response. And I called him and didn't get a response. And I developed such a relationship with him. I was able to text him. And I was like, dude, like, come on, what's going on here? I need you to sign this thing.
He's like,
and,
oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, are you, like, you really want to go freedive to 100 feet? What the hell are you doing? And I'm like, listen, and this is verbatim when I told him, like, I'm going to try to do it anyway. Wouldn't you rather me know what I'm doing and know how to save myself or my buddies if something happens? And he's like, I can't even argue with you. I'm like, come on, dude.
Nice.
Let's just do this.
Nice.
So it's been an interesting journey, but I spent a lot of time like really angry, I think, about having to go through that at a young age. But I think in retrospect now, I can see the value and the lessons I've learned from that. And
life lessons, yeah.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Big time.
How does it affect your diving?
So I try not to do a lot of deep dives. My pacemaker can go to 130 feet.
Awesome.
Like I said, my doctor lied to me and told me 100. He's like, you shouldn't go past that anyway. I'm like, so I can go like 130, right? And I remember I hit 115 in Ted's class, and I texted my doctor a picture of my dive watch with some expletives that I won't repeat on your show. But it was a whole lot of like, in your face, dude, I can totally do this. Was basically the message that was conveyed.
That's awesome.
So I have to take some medicine every like 3 to 4 hours. So anytime I do a trip or I'm on a boat, I just have to make sure I'm really conscious of that. And my dive buddies know me really well. They're like, Angie, spend like 3 hours. They'll normally remind me.
That's cool. That's perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Like, that's how I know I've got good friends.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
And for a while, I wasn't able to load a spear gun anymore, so we had to make some changes with that. Just because of the wires and whatnot, we'd hate to pull.
Oh, yeah.
That could be really bad. So, but I've kind of gotten to a point now where it's just like part of how it is, you know.
That's
and
cool.
I try to just go on. A lot of people don't even know that I have a condition that I deal with, so I never want to be a victim.
That's awesome. That's such a great attitude to have about it. That's awesome. I mean, to me, I was already super impressed with your Instagram feed, right? All the fish you're shooting. I know. Insta cool, right?
Insta cool, yeah.
But
yeah.
then when I heard the story, I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Like I'm over here like, oh, the diving conditions are like not so perfect, and then it's like you're sitting there diving with a pacemaker. Jesus, awesome.
Well, it's funny when I freedive, especially, you know, I've got these weird settings with my pacemaker because of my unique condition that if my pulse drops too quickly, my pacemaker will kind of jump in and change it for me. So if I am doing a breathe up and I lower my pulse too fast, it will pace me 40 beats from where I was. So it can ruin my breathe up for me. Yeah, if I'm doing a breathe up and I'm like getting nice and low and comfortable and it goes too fast down, it'll knock me back up to 100 beats per minute or 140 beats per minute. Or I'll start my dive and it'll drop some more. I love that mammalian dive reflex, but my pacemaker doesn't. So every once in a while, I'll get a really good breathe up and feel great about it, and then my pacemaker will jump in, and I'm like, you jerk, come on.
That's so crazy.
But you know what? I'm like, dude, I'm diving.
What does it feel like? Like, is it like?
I guess the best way I can describe it is it feels like a car kind of pulls out in front of you, and you get that weird surge that jumps.
Yeah, the initial, yeah.
Exactly. So it's just kind of like a quick
startled. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a startle. It's a startle.
Oh,
and
wow.
Pulse up. It'll leave it at that rate, whatever it sets it to, for 4 minutes. So it takes a while to bring it back down, but it's kind of like some superhuman sense I guess I have now, and knowing almost within a 3 to 5 beat per minute where my pulse is at any given time.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so I really come to learn my body really well.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, it's always a positive. It's great.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so that's awesome. That's awesome. So now we're going to jump into the spear. That's the last segment of the show. And the spear is basically a single question. Okay, so with all of your spearfishing experience, what is the single most important insight you've had about spearfishing?
Oh, boy. I think that we've covered it. Again, it's not about being cool. It's not about shooting the biggest fish. This is a place where you can go to be at peace, to be with your friends and have fun and make memories. And at the end of the day, the person who's having the most fun is going to get the most out of the experience. It's not about shooting the bigger fish or whatever. That's the best day. Right. My best stories aren't about the bigger fish that I've shot or the trips I've taken or whatever. They're about who I was with and how we dove together and those memories that we've created. And especially because of my unique experiences with life and death.
Right.
I value those a lot more. So spearfishing is a great vessel for finding that kind of inner peace and finding that comfort and developing those relationships. So I love it.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great answer. Awesome. Perfect. Okay. So now let's give us how we get in contact with you, how we follow you.
I am on Instagram at Anderson Angie, and I'm on Facebook, and that's pretty much it.
Perfect.
I mean, I can follow you on Instagram too, and link that way, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. That works. Thanks for the plug. I was good. Awesome. All right, Angie, thank you so much for joining us on the Spear today. Have a great day, and we really enjoyed having you on the show. Thanks so much for also being the first guest to also do video. So for those of you that don't know, I probably should have said this at the beginning of the show. You can watch this whole interview again and actually see our expressions, see our faces. We're going to be on SpearoTV.com.
Yeah, this has been thrilling.
Thanks, Angie.
Thanks, Roman.
All right, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you've enjoyed the spearfishing tips shared today, head on over to SpearoNation.com and download the free PDF, 25 spearfishing tips to make you a better Spearo. I'm feeling a lot more comfortable with this whole interview process, and so the editing on this episode was a bit more loose than I normally do. Let me know what you think. Did you like, dislike, or didn't notice? Shoot me an email. Send the email to roman@SpearoNation.com, and I would love to get your feedback. All right, have a great weekend, and dive safe. Welcome back, SpearoNation. Thank you so much for tuning in. Outtakes. All right.
Hi.
Hi.
Nice. Wow, yo, backdrop?
No, honestly, it's the only like blank wall I have in my house.
That's
so
perfect.
It worked out really well.
That's awesome.
All right. Hey, welcome back. Thank you for listening to the show. If you've enjoyed the spearfishing ship, boom, we're done.